Well, folks, it's Ben 10 time once again. It's always this. It's always Ben 10. If you haven't already, I've got my previous videos on Alien Force, where I went through a bit of the first season, and now we're going to wrap that up here. So far, Alien Force has had plenty of ideas that I find interesting. It just hasn't really committed to the best ones in the way I would have liked. But I can still definitely see the potential in this show and in some of these characters. Like Kevin. Kevin's great. He's got potential. More serious Ben. I'm kind of down for that. I just want them to do some different stuff with this. So after all my negativity in the previous parts of this video series, let's get to something positive by jumping forward to episode 12, Paradox. Here, a doctor's experiments go wrong and he ends up becoming a time traveler with a unique perspective. And when this alien creature appears who makes anyone it passes through age, the gang needs to figure out how to stop it. This is easily my favorite episode in all of Alien Force's first season. The reason is simple. This one really takes its ideas and runs with them. Dr. Paradox is suitably nutty and strange, resulting in some pretty funny moments. All in all, he's one of the most well-defined characters I've seen so far in all of Ben 10, not just Alien Force. Meanwhile, through the car becoming a rusted piece of crap and Kevin aging up, the premise is pushed reasonably far. Beyond that, the directing and pacing I've sometimes called awkward previously in this show actually works really well here, and helps sell the idea that what's going on here is unusual and off. Meanwhile, the end twist that this monster is really Dr. Paradox's assistant from back in the day felt like a genuine discovery for Ben, and a good moment to show how he's thinking things through and growing increasingly competent. Overall, it's in moments like these that Alien Force is at its strongest. When we're exploring wacky one-off scenarios, there are some fun ideas, and we actually tap into the potential of these premises. I mean, sure, I don't have all that much to say about this, but the fact of the matter is that I was entertained. For 20 minutes, we grabbed onto a cool idea, and we ran with it. I enjoyed it. I didn't need to learn all that much new about the characters. I didn't need some fantastic thematic through line. I just wanted to be entertained with some sort of unique scenario. However, this isn't a consistent thing. At other points, these one-off conflicts are really rough, regardless of their cool concepts. Take the first season's final episode, X equals Ben plus 2. This time, Ben and the group get wrapped up in a massive conflict involving this kidnapped princess and an alien emperor who can destroy the world. However, when Ben uses one of his new aliens, it seems like everything will be easy. After all, they're by far the most powerful alien we've seen yet, seemingly able to reset damage with a simple thought. But this comes with a price. This alien is really made up of multiple minds, locked in a perpetual debate about which action to take. If they can't come to an agreement, nothing happens, and now Ben is trapped with them, unable to help until he can convince at least one of them to follow his lead. Now, I love this concept. This season has constantly leaned into the idea that Ben will need to be a leader and be able to convince people to do the right thing or properly judge difficult situations. And what better way to show that than this? A conflict between these two very different minds where he needs to be the mediator. Meanwhile, Gwen and Kevin are still dealing with world-shattering stakes, so it's like there's this ticking clock down to destruction. Any moment Ben waits or fails is one step closer to the end of the world. But here's the thing, I didn't really find this episode all that fun. In fact, I didn't really find it fun at all. The scenes between Ben and these two beings are bland. They simply float in space with no visual flair, and beyond that, their conversations don't really go anywhere much. We only see the alien's power once because all Ben convinces them to do is let him leave. I can't help but think that this should have gone further. I mean, it's honestly not hard to think of cool things that they could have done with this all-powerful alien, and yet, nope, nothing. What happens instead is that they eventually get so sick of Ben that they let him leave. That's it. All in all, this cool concept is reduced to something rote and disappointing because the plot and presentation don't take advantage of the ideas present here. Oh yeah, this is also the only time we see Alien X in all of Alien Force, so yeah, that's also pretty disappointing. Then there are the episodes that attempt to build new conflicts, like episode 8, Benighted. This one involves the Forever Knights hunting down this dragon. At first, Ben joins forces with them, but he quickly realizes that there's more to this situation than it initially seemed. This episode really leans into the idea that Ben is supposed to be learning to use his head more, mainly through Gwen talking to him about exactly that. And I immediately have a bit of an issue with this. Gwen could say this type of stuff in the original series because she was the smarter one. But now, Well, now Ben is more often the one who's figuring things out or properly questioning situations, like with Kevin in episode 4, for example. So when Gwen says this stuff or the show acts like Ben needs to learn this lesson, it doesn't quite land for me. Ben isn't the same headstrong kid he once was. He's absolutely willing to take a step back and carefully evaluate a situation. I believed that before this episode, and yet we try to treat this like something new for him. It makes it feel like the show doesn't really have a firm grasp on who he is now. Worse still, the way the episode handles this just doesn't feel convincing to me, because this dragon's been locked up with the Forever Knights for 1,000 years, and now he wants revenge. But Ben needs to talk him out of this. Ben's way of doing that is, well, he does it without all that much of a struggle. In fact, he acts like the dragon's suffering might not have been that big of a deal or something, like 1,000 years isn't all that bad because dragons live a long time. To be fair, he later says that he might feel the same way and tells the dragon that he's not a monster, he's a map maker. If Ben and the dragon had more of a relationship, this could have landed for me, but there really isn't much here. But there are plenty of other problems. For one, this episode acts like it's setting up some future plot with the Forever Knights fighting the dragons, but that barely comes up again, and when it does, it doesn't get wrapped up there, so it feels like this thread that we never really follow through on. Otherwise, this episode is a big low point for Alien Force from a production standpoint. First off, the action is, well, it's terrible. There's no real feel of consistency from shot to shot. It makes the whole thing feel stilted and almost like a fever dream. Then we have moments like this, where it seems like they forgot to have this guy cheer with the rest of the Forever Knights. Actually, the sound is a big problem here. Their armor frequently doesn't clank or rustle, footsteps are still missing a lot of the time. It all adds to that cobbled together, fever dreamy quality. Oh yeah, they also put Kevin on the wrong layer here. Like he's supposed to be behind Gwen because that's where he is in the other shots and they never finished drawing his hand. Yeah, the attention to detail just isn't here. All this is to say that this episode fails on multiple levels. It attempts to set up future conflicts that we never properly come around to. It goes for big action scenes, but they're pretty horribly done. Other production issues are incredibly obvious, and Ben's big speech fell flat for me and his lesson didn't feel necessary or accurate to the character we've seen so far. Episode 11 is in a somewhat similar vein. Here we meet these rogue plumbers who are hunting down aliens on their own. When they try to hunt down the likes of Ben, Gwen, and Kevin due to their unique powers, we've got a conflict on our hands. Really, this episode is all about these two characters, Helen and Manny, learning to talk things out before jumping to conclusions. So it's pretty important that the audience wants to see more of them, and, well, they weren't for me. Most of the time, they're just arguing because they really miss this teammate of theirs, but it's hard for me to care all that much because I don't really know what they've lost. After all, I've never seen them not argue, I've never seen them get along or got a sense of what they're really capable of. Actually, their dynamic is almost confusing to me, because Helen seems really concerned about Manny's actions, and she should be. Manny is willing to put others in extreme danger to capture and disintegrate people who he doesn't even know without confirming if they're bad or not. Guess he's got a real reason to dislike aliens, but I have no idea what that is. Again, I feel so distant from him. But this is arguably worse for Helen. See, despite all of Helen's complaining, she still ultimately goes along with Manny's actions, which I thought she wouldn't, since she's putting up so much of a fuss. All this is to say that I didn't care about Helen and Manny, meaning that this whole episode fell apart for me. But this gets weirder because at the end, we learn that Helen and Manny have likely been capturing other plumbers' kids, so now they go to the Null Void to find them. Alright, so it looks like this is set up for the overall collect plumbers' kids plot. But it isn't, because they don't do that. Next time we see them, they're hanging out in the Null Void with their missing team member, but they haven't found a single other plumber's kid. Were they not able to find them? Did they forget? I don't know. It isn't mentioned again. Alien Force is just forgetting what it previously set up, and if it's gonna keep doing that, why should I get invested? Regardless, let's just move on to the next episode I want to discuss, The Gauntlet. This one is all about Ben confronting the bullies from his past, which is something I'm down to see, but the way it's done here. See, they begin their misdeeds by purposely bumping into Ben to make him spill some smoothies on himself. They get their usual laughs in, but then Ben tells them they're pathetic and that he's grown past them, which could be cool, but it feels kinda like we just addressed the problem in this episode then? Probably more importantly though, the scene is super unconvincing. The way Ben tells them off and then everyone laughs and claps. Yeah, Ben got an "and everyone clapped" moment. To me, this simply didn't feel like a convincing follow-up to their relationship in the OG series, and once again, the show is missing that connective tissue from old Ben to new Ben. What I mean is that I wanted to see this Ben tell them off, not this older one. Whatever though, there is other stuff going on in this episode. Because the bullies wreck Kevin's car and steal some of the alien tech in the trunk, including this gauntlet, and Cash puts it on and he starts getting angry. This machine thing possesses his body and he can't control himself until Ben has the shortest fight of his life with him, and the other bully tells him that he still has control, and that fixes things, I guess. Yeah, this episode is really about how Cash's mental fortitude helps him escape from alien tech's clutches or something. At least that's what this moment leads me to believe, but Cash is still just as awful at the end as he was at the start. He doesn't even apologize or anything. I really don't know what I'm supposed to take from this. What makes this worse is that now Alien Force has communicated that it's about a longer, overarching conflict. So the fact that Cash knows Ben's supposed secret identity, that should be a big problem. Like, we're gonna need to follow up on that, but we don't. It just doesn't matter. Really, Ben's secret identity is only an issue when the show decides it should be. If it's convenient to the plot, it doesn't matter anymore. Either that, or the show just keeps forgetting. But the final episode I have to discuss somehow manages to frustrate me even more. First off, this episode is one of the only ones that actually shows any of Ben and Gwen feeling something about Grandpa's death. Ben's brought Gwen to this lake where they used to go with their grandpa in the hopes of cheering her up. However, someone else is here. Soon enough, they learn that this is Gwen's grandma, who's really an alien. Right away, I wasn't too fond of this. In the old series, I thought the implication was that Grandpa's wife was dead, and having it be that she was just an alien instead, it takes something away from that for me. It alters the reasoning for his grief in a manner that I just don't like. Regardless of that though, the truly important thing is what this woman tells Gwen. Gwen is apparently an Anodite, which is why she can use magic. Yeah, that's right. It's been confirmed that Gwen's magic isn't really magic. It's alien stuff. If this isn't a big deal to you, I get that, but it really bugs me. I mean, already Alien Force has limited her abilities compared to what we saw in the original show, but now we're also shrinking the scope of the world, instead of expanding outward and using this continuation as an opportunity to make things bigger. It feels like the opposite of world building. It's like world demolition. Everything keeps coming back to aliens, and it makes this whole world feel small. But either way, this revelation represents a conflict for Gwen. She can either go with her grandma and train, or she can stay behind with Kevin and Ben. Now, there is a sweet moment here that I like. Ben tries to be supportive in a very basic way, telling her to do what she wants. But Kevin brushes that aside and tells her that she should not leave. That would be stupid. That might come across as a bit insensitive, but that's really what Gwen needed to hear. She wanted to know that she would be missed if she left, that this team needs her, and that's what Kevin's less basic, more heartfelt response showed her. Honestly, this is easily their most convincing moment yet, and the most I've bought into them as a couple. After that though, Gwen goes and tells Grandma she's not going, but Grandma decides to fight them and take her anyway. For the most part, this fight is the usual, flat, Alien Force fare. The only difference is that Grandma's whimsical personality adds a little bit of fun spice that I definitely appreciated, but then we get to the point where Gwen tells her that she isn't going, and well, I've already complained about what she has to say with the whole kissing boys thing. If you like that, you like that. If you don't like that like me, you don't like that, but I won't complain about it anymore. The biggest problem with all of this is that the beginning of this episode made me think that this would be where we address characters' feelings about Grandpa, but it doesn't come up. No one mentions that he's gone. No one tells Grandma about it. They don't discuss what happened in any sort of detail. Honestly, most of the time, it feels like no one reacts to anything in this show. No one reacts when Cash learns Ben's secret identity. No one reacts when Grandma assaults some kids. No one reacts when Grandpa freaking dies. It's like the show desperately wants to jump to extreme situations or really change the stakes, but it isn't willing to commit to those changes. So far, Alien Force has been a massive disappointment. A show that consistently has pretty cool ideas, but fails to follow up on them in a compelling manner. But here's the thing. Next time with Season 2, I'm going to get to be a bit more positive because Season 2 has some episodes that I really enjoy. In fact, I think it contains the best parts of Ben 10 Alien Force. So I hope you'll stick around for next time when I get to go over that part of the show. Either way, thank you for watching this video, and bye-bye for now.